Could I ask you a question, Jean?
Certainly, Roger.
Well, I'd like to...
But not now. Studying requires absolute concentration.
Sorry, Jean. I'll turn the pages more quietly.
It's very considerate of you, Roger.
Okay.
Much better, Roger.
What's happening? I'm sorry.
Jean, this is my roommate, Rerun. Rerun, meet Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, Rita.
Hi, Jean. That's funny. Keep it clean with hi, Jean.
Rerun, we're trying to study, so could you keep it quiet?
Oh, sure, Roger. You two go ahead and study. Yeah, I'm just going to relax a little. But you won't even know I'm here.
Jean is the smartest girl. Jean is the smartest fox in this whole college, and she asked me to study with her, Rerun. Now, please, don't blow this.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll fix it. I'm sorry that I disturbed you, hi, Jean. I shall try to contain myself, okay?
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Just no sense in trying to go further, Roger. I'm going home.
Wait a minute, Jean. I mean, maybe we can study at your house.
No, that's not possible. My roommate is right in the middle of moving out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jean.
Oh, no problem. Oh, by the way, tomorrow night I'm having some friends over for a little dinner. Would you join us?
Oh, I'd love to, but tomorrow night I'm having dinner with a friend myself.
Well, bring him along.
Thanks a lot. We'd love to come. What time?
Well, make it around 8-ish.
8-ish? We'll be there-ish. Bye.
I hope you liked the dinner, Raj.
Oh, the dinner was great, Jean.
Rerun, won't you try the sweet and sour shrimp? There's still a few left.
Thank you, but I'll just eat the sweet ones. I hate sour shrimp. Just kidding, just kidding.
You know, I think of all the places in the world to visit, I'd like to go to Italy. I've read so much about it.
Ah, yes, Italy. The canals of Venice.
The statues of Florence.
The churches of Rome.
The pizzas of pepperoni.
Aren't you on an exchange program here, Bina?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm working on my doctor's thesis.
Why doesn't your doctor do his own thesis?
Here, eat.
You know, Roy would have loved this dinner.
Oh, who's Roy?
An old boyfriend. Past history.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was so late. Bina and I must leave. I have an 8 o'clock class.
Oh, yes, but thank you so much for the lovely dinner.
You're welcome, and of course I understand.
As we say in my land, may the food always remain on your table.
And as we say in my land, may you attack a Big Mac.
Rerun, why don't you go too, you know? Maybe you can get a lift with Bina and Sue Charlie. Come on, get up, go. I mean, there's nothing to do with the dishes. I can do that with Jean, so go. Come on.
Okay, Raj. The dishes, right? I got it. Excuse me, can I get a lift? So they can do the dishes.
Certainly. And may all your journeys be pleasant ones?
And may your gas tank be overflowing. Because I live 20 miles from here.
I found your friend rather unique, Roger.
Well, you don't know him like I do, Jean. He's my best friend in the whole world.
Hey, Raj, that's your old world. This is a whole new scene. Do you see what I'm offering you?
Well, I'm not sure. You want to show me?
Sit down, Roger. Now, this may be a little sudden. I know I've only known you for a week. Well, you know my roommate moved out. Well, I hate living alone.
Oh, why don't you get a pet?
Look, Roger, what I'm trying to say is, I want you to move in with me.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, Roger. Now, I will be right back as soon as I clear the table. Okay?
Oh, just take your time, baby. We got all night. I don't know why Rerun is so mad. Hey, Rerun.
Don't hey rerun me, ex-roommate.
Oh, will you stop it? Look, I can't find that pair of socks my mother made for me. Do you know where they are?
Yes.
Well, since you know where they are, do you mind getting them for me?
Okay.
Never mind. I'll just drop by later and pick up my socks.
Drop by later. After 10 years of friendship, he walks out on me and says, I'll drop by later for my socks. Can you believe this fool, Dwayne?
Sure, Rerun, they're nice socks.
Shut up, Dwayne.
Rerun, just because I'm moving in with Jean, there's no reason we can't still be best friends. Now, is there?
Yeah, I think it's a very good reason. Best friends just don't walk out on each other.
I'm not walking out. I'm walking into a whole new world of elegance and culture and refinement.
Yeah, and there's a pretty girl there, too.
Let's face it, Raj. The only reason why you're moving in there is that she's prettier than me.
Rerun, if you're worried about the rent, I told you I'd pay my share until you found another roommate.
Hey, that seems fair.
It's not a question of money. It's a question of friendship.
Yeah, it's a question of friendship.
A man has to try to improve himself.
Yeah, no, you can't blame him for that.
But true friendship comes first.
You're right, improvement does come second.
A true friend would understand that each man has his own needs. Each man is an island.
He's an island, Rerun.
You don't just throw 10 years of friendship out the window.
Now, 10 years is a long time, Island.
I'm not throwing it away.
He's not throwing it away, Mountain.
I think you're acting selfish.
Yeah, selfish.
And I think you're being pig-headed.
Yeah, pig-headed.
Well, who you calling big-headed, fool?
Yeah.
And who you calling fool?
Yeah.
Shut up, Dwayne. really gotta get going. Hey, don't worry, Rerun. You'll find another roommate.
Yeah, I can find another roommate. But where am I gonna find another best friend?
I'll be your best friend, Rita.
Shut up, Dwayne.
Right on.
Just a minute. Coming. Yes?
Hi, I'm Roger Thomas's sister Dee.
Oh, come in. And what can I do for you?
Roger's ex-roommate isn't speaking to him, so he paid me $2 to deliver this stuff that Raj left. Say, where is this new roommate of Raj's named Jean? I'd like to meet the guy.
I'm Jean. Now, would you mind picking up every one of those unmentionables and taking them and yourself out of here? Your brother won't be moving in.
He won't?
No, I've changed my mind. I've decided I want to live alone. I don't want any roommate at all.
Hey, baby, I'm almost ready.
Oh, Roy.
Who's that, the tidy bowl man?
My clothes come from the cleaner?
Yes.
Tip the kid a quarter.
All right, I'm going to be honest with you.
Really? Do you know how?
Look, Roy is my original roommate, and he decided to move back in. In other words, Raj is out.
In other words, Raj was never in. You were just using him to get your old boyfriend back.
Well, how do you know so much about life at your age?
I know everything about life. I watch soap operas.
Excuse me. Oh, it's Roger, and I haven't told him yet.
Better let me handle this. Hi, Raj. Bye, Raj. Bye.
Dee, what are you doing here?
Well, I have two kinds of news.
Bad news and good news?
No. Bad news and worse news.
Oh, come on, Rerun, cheer up. Hey, man, let's go play some basketball.
No thanks, Dwayne. I feel really silly playing without Raj.
You really miss him, huh?
No, I missed the basketball. He took it with him.
Hey, Rerun, man, why don't you let me move in here with you?
No way.
I get it. Raj, man, what are you doing back here?
I'm home, Dwayne. I'm back home where I belong. Back among my real friends, my true friends, and my dearest friends.
And who are you?
That's a funny one, Rerun. Yeah, here I am. Home at last.
Well, you're too late, Raj. I already decided to rent your part of the room out to Dwayne.
Huh?
Dwayne? Dwayne's moving in here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, why not?
But I haven't even been gone an hour yet. I mean, you still have my socks on.
Things happen fast in the 70s, Raj. Dwayne is my new roommate. Right, Dwayne, old buddy?
Yeah, all right. May I get the bed by the window?
Sure, anything you want. Well, look like you're out of luck, Raj.
Hey, I don't suppose maybe I could stay here for a few days and sleep on the couch or the floor. You see, I'm kind of stuck for a place to stay, Rerun.
Why don't you stay at Jean's place?
I can't.
Why not?
Because the room isn't ready yet.
Why not?
Because Jean's on... Because Jean's old roommate is living in it.
She came back, huh?
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Raj, is she pretty? I mean, is she my type?
Oh, I hope not.
Well, that's too bad, Raj, but you can't stay here. I know Dwayne would like some guy sleeping on the floor in his apartment.
Oh, rerun, I don't mind.
Shut up, Dwayne.
You got a point.
What am I gonna do?
Well, you could go back to your mama's.
I can't. You know Shirley has my old room.
Well, Raj, keep in touch and let me know where you're at, okay? Let me know where you stand.
Well, you see, I guess I better get going, huh?
Where you going?
To my place. I mean, if I'm gonna be moving in here, I gotta ask my parents, pack my clothes, and pack my goldfish.
Dwayne, you're not moving in here.
Why not? Was it the goldfish? Man, you'll love him. He can swim.
Dwayne. Let me explain. I just wanted Raj to think I had a roommate.
Oh. Does that mean I don't get to bed by the window?
Dwayne.
Hi, Shirley.
What are you doing here?
You know what I'm doing here. And is Mama here, and does she know what I'm doing here?
No, Mama's not here, and she knows Jean's old roommate moved back in. And that's all she knows, and it'll be $50 to keep it that way.
What's he paying you not to tell your mother?
That'll be another 50 cents, Raj.
What for?
For not answering Shirley's question.
Now, suppose I give you $1 to tell me.
I think I finally hit pay dirt. Can I see $1? Can I see two?
How would you like to see stars?
Sorry, Shirley. Blood is thicker than money. How come you're not at your apartment with Rerun?
Oh, I don't have an apartment anymore. Rerun rented my half out to Dwayne.
Dwayne?
Well, does that mean that you're moving back in here?
If I can.
Well, now, you know I'm paying rent for the room now, so if you got any intentions of moving back in there, you can forget that buddy him.
Oh, well, maybe I'll just sleep here on the couch until I can find a place to live. But in the meantime, Shirley, what about dinner?
What about it?
Well, what are we having?
Well, how about turkey?
Hey, that's great.
Good. Set the oven for 450 and get in.
How come everybody is being so nasty to me?
Raj, do you know what happened this afternoon on Search for a Brighter Destiny?
Dee, how would I know what happened on
Martha
Search?
got jealous and told William that Francine was seeing Robert.
Francine? Well, I thought Robert was still seeing this Josephine.
No, he hasn't seen Josephine since she lost the baby.
Girl, did she lose the baby? Girl, when did this happen?
After Mary's visit.
Well, did anybody tell Franklin?
Yeah, 4 people did.
4 people? Was the boy listening when he...
No, he's going deaf.
What does all of this have to do with me?
Jealousy, Raj. That's it, jealousy.
What are you talking about?
Jean used you to make Roy jealous, and Rerun used Dwayne to make you jealous.
Of course. There's no way Dwayne could afford to rent that apartment.
You know Dwayne has to borrow money just to buy baseball cards.
That's right. You know, you're pretty smart for a pain-in-the-neck kid. Hey, and thanks for sticking up for me at Jean's, too.
You're welcome. And Raj, next time you decide to move in with girls, do me a favor.
What?
Make it me and Mama.
Thanks, Steve.
Hello? Hi, D. Is Raj? Oh, hold on one second. Come in. Yeah, Dwayne, just by coincidence, Raj just walked in. Yeah, I'll get the key from him. Okay, see you later, old roomie, old buddy, old pal. Roomie. Yeah, that's my main man, my roomie, my pal.
That's old buddy, roomie, pal, main man, Dwayne, huh?
Yeah. You never left me your key.
Yeah, I know.
What do you want here anyhow?
I just came to move back in and let you know that I'm aware that you were only saying that Dwayne was moving in here to make me jealous. And it worked. And I don't blame you one bit for being hurt. And I am sorry.
Let me ask you one question.
What?
Whose turn is it to cook? Hello, Mr. Pizza? Yeah, this is Rerun again. I'd like to order 2 large pizzas with everything on them.
All right.
Hey, what are you gonna have, Raj?
Hey, Rerun, what's happening?
Dinner is what's happening, Raja-san.
Raja-san.
Yes. I have prepared my famous sweet and sour shrimp dinner. Please bow and be seated.
You're kidding.
Bow, chump.
You're not kidding. Boy, that smells delicious.
Yes. And I even have chopsticks. I have learned how to use them.
Rerun, I'm really proud of you, man. And this is real class. What's this thing?
This ancient Chinese appliance. Observe. Hey, what's happening? How do I look?
Hey, why don't you turn around? You know, I never noticed that, but you look the same from both sides.
This happens to be my new uniform from ABC.
ABC, always bad clothes.
Now that you're a page, can you get us any tickets for any TV shows?
I just happen to have a couple.
Hey, all right, Rerun, tickets to Family Feud. Hey, Raj, Rerun got us tickets to Family Feud tonight.
Oh, great.
Raj, how come you're not at work?
Lost my job. The market stopped home deliveries.
Well, I thought you was gonna get that job with the morning paper.
Oh, that's a long shot. And all I got is an interview. And that's not until next week.
You a reporter, that's gonna be great, Raj.
Yeah, but Dwayne, I might not get it. I mean, besides, it wouldn't even start for another week. And I need the money now. Look at this. Look at all my bills. A bill for electricity, gas, telephone.
Calm down, calm down. You need money? Don't panic. I am your sister. What do you need, $10, $20? It's yours.
You mean it?
Certainly. Let's see. $20 at 7% interest compounded daily over a period of 6 months equals $3.30 per month.
D.
And in the event that you don't pay up, we'll have to repossess your glasses.
Hey, Raj, why don't you look at the want ads? You know, there's always a lot of good jobs in here.
Hey, great idea, Shirley. Great idea. Let's see here. Ah, this might be something.
Yeah, lost kitty. $50 reward.
No, Dwayne, not that one. This one. Wanted, young man to earn big money in spare time, Unified Meat Company. I'm gonna check him out right now. Unified Meat.
Hey, Raj. Relax, Raj. You've plenty of time for that. Don't you want to see the Family Feud?
Rerun, in case you've forgotten, we share an apartment. And unless we pay the bills, they'll turn off our lights.
So we'll use candles.
Then they'll turn off our hot water.
A cold shower can be very refreshing.
Then they'll shut off our refrigerator and all our food will go bad.
Get a job, Raj.
If you're close to the governor, believe him.
Sandwich, you are about to enter the tunnel of love.
This morning, I was just another unemployed student. And now I am a junior executive.
You got a job.
Better than that, I have a whole new career in meat.
Huh?
Yep. This is gonna make me a very, very rich man. Take a look at it. Come here.
This is gonna make you rich?
Hey! Oh, look at this. These sections represent steaks, ribs, and hamburgers. My customers save money by buying a whole cow.
Raj, who wants a whole cow roaming around in their apartment?
I'm not selling live cows, I'm selling frozen cows.
Well, who wants a frozen cow roaming around in their apartment?
Dwayne, you're now looking at the new West Coast representative of the Unified Meat Company. And they gave me a whole sales kit full of materials.
Oh, wow, check it out. Rerun a plastic rump roast.
You give me that. Now, come on, I'll show you the whole sales technique.
All right, turn on the old sales pitch.
All right, I'll be the salesman, and you and Rerun be Mr. and Mrs. Happy Homemaker.
Okay. I'll be Mr. Smith, and you can be Mrs. Smith.
Wait, why should I be Mrs. Smith? I want to be Mr. Smith, and you could be Mrs. Smith.
It doesn't matter who's Mrs. Smith.
Maybe it doesn't matter to you, but it matters to me.
Dwayne, it's only a demonstration.
All right, Raj, I'll do it for you. Wait, Raj, shouldn't I have pearls?
Look, now, I'll go outside, I'll knock on the door, and I'll show you the whole selling approach, okay?
Get the door, baby. I said get the door, baby.
Well, why should I get it? I always get it.
Because you're Mrs. Smith, and I've just come home from a hard day's work.
Oh, yeah? Well, I've been on my feet all day, cooking and cleaning, while you were out drinking with the fellas.
I would answer it, but it's probably your nagging mama again.
Don't you nagging mama me.
Well, it's your nagging mama.
And you're a nagging son.
And you're the nagging son. What? I want a divorce.
Raj, go on with your demonstration.
Good afternoon. What a lovely apartment, but it's to be expected from such a lovely couple. Any children? No? Well, can I have a seat? Thank you. Wow, you look like you'd be interested in some meat. Now, here. I'm from the Unified Meat Company. And have I got a deal for you?
Raj, man, isn't that your cow on the tube?
Oh, yeah. And there's my boss, Mr. Clayton from Unified Meats. Must be a commercial.
But I wonder why he's wearing handcuffs.
Clayton was indicted today on 4 counts of fraud in connection with the meat packing scandal. Mr. Clayton denies a vicious rumor all allegations that his meat was really plastic.
What? Are you kidding me?
Film at 11.
You're not kidding me. Boy. Well, now how am I going to pay my bills?
Don't worry, Raj. Maybe you could check around the school for a job.
Next time, you be more careful.
Next time I'll look before I leap.
And next time you get to play the housewife.
Mrs. Miller?
Oh, hello.
Hi. I read your ad on the bulletin board about male student wanted. See art department. Roger Thomas, male student.
Good. We need help in our figure drawing class.
I knew you would. Figure drawing is my life. I still have my Crayolas.
Yes. How tall are you?
Oh, I guess 5'9". Wait, but height isn't everything. Look at Toulouse-Lautrec. No, don't look at Toulouse-Lautrec. The poor man is dead. He probably looks awful. Just a little Toulouse-Lautrec joke. Oh, I love the Impressionists. Van Gogh, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, boy, what a painter. You know, he had a great effect on me. When I read about him cutting off his ear, I threw away my Musketeer hat.
Roger, do you have any idea of what kind of job this is?
Does it pay money?
Yes.
Then it doesn't matter what kind of job it is.
Roger, have you ever modeled?
Model?
Yes, like posing.
Oh, sure. What do you mean,
That's fine. You've got the job. Be back here at 4.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Miller. You won't regret it. You won't. Oh, what do I wear?
Oh, it really doesn't matter what you wear over here, because you'll be posing in the nude.
In the nude? You mean like with nothing on? You're talking like newborn baby nude?
Does that bother you?
Oh, no. Nude. I mean, naked and nude are the same thing, right? Of course it's the same thing. You mean nude like this kind of nude, right? Naked and nude. All those eyes and people watching. No, I can't do it. I have my pride, Mrs. Miller, and I don't want everybody to see it. I consider myself a responsible person, and posing naked in front of a room full of women and men is not my idea of what a responsible person does. This body is not for sale.
Pays $35 an hour.
However, I will rent it out by the hour.
How much does it pay?
$35 an hour.
What pays $35 an hour?
Roger's new job.
Well, what does he do? Inspect hand grenades?
He says it's only until he gets the job at the newspaper.
You know, the only guy I ever knew that made that kind of money ran a television store.
Where was it?
In the trunk of his car.
Hey, Dwayne. What do you say we find out what Roger's doing?
That's prying, Rerun.
That's right. Hey, if Raj didn't tell you what he was doing, he probably had a very good reason. You know, the job could be dangerous. For all that money, it has to be exciting, glamorous, to me, and very risky job. For all we know, see, Raj's life could be in danger at this very minute. So what are you two fools sitting there for? Get on out there and start crying.
All right, you can come in now, Roger. Roger.
Hello, young lady. How you doing? All right, take it easy. No applause. No applause. Okay, class, you can start now. They call this painting Student in Bathrobe.
Roger, that's not good enough.
Oh, okay, Student in Blue Bathrobe.
Roger, we're not paying you $35 an hour for terry cloth.
I understand.
Oh, I almost forgot. Someone called from the newspaper. It's about an interview. It's been changed to 5 o'clock today.
5 o'clock today?
Just don't worry. The class lets out at 4:45. And if you hurry, you can make it. Now, let's not waste any more time. Please remove your robe.
Okay. Sorry, class, for the delay.
Roger, we are not interested in your feet.
Well, I thought maybe you want to start at the bottom and work your way up.
The robe, please. Roger. The bathing suit must go.
Here it is, the art room.
Sounds like the Rose Bowl. I wonder what they're doing in there.
That's why Roger's acting so mysterious. He's skinny dipping without a pool.
I never knew he had a mole there.
Boy, this must be tough on Raj. You know how shy he is.
Yeah, he's the only guy I know who wears a wetsuit in the shower.
Poor Raj, he looks ridiculous.
Wouldn't it be a trip if someone stole Roger's clothes?
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't it be the perfect practical joke?
Uh-huh.
It would be an absolute scream, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh.
So get his clothes, Dwayne. Well, if you're not gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
Good idea. Where you think his clothes are?
I'll try in here.
All right, I'm gonna look over here.
I got him, Dwayne, I got him.
But Rerun, if we take his clothes, how's Roger gonna get home?
Don't worry, he'll take the scenic route.
What's that?
Through the bushes.
Bye now.
Hi.
Hi.
You were great.
Thank you.
May I have your autograph?
Sure.
And your phone number.
My phone number? Why?
Well, I'd like to see more of you.
Hey, if you see any more of me, you have to get x-rays.
We'll work something out.
That's fine with me. Oh, but I got a very important interview. But I can't accompany you as far as my pants. Mrs. Miller, someone stole my clothes.
That's impossible.
No, it's true. Somebody stole my clothes. Oh, wait a minute. Mrs. Miller, what's going on here? Oh, you're one of those TV shows with the hidden cameras? That's it?
No, wait, Roger, please. You mustn't panic. Now, you must stay calm.
No, you remain calm. You got your clothes on.
Please.
And I got that interview in 10 minutes.
Listen, you must keep control of yourself.
Okay, I'll stay here and control myself, and you go to the newspaper and get interviewed.
Just stop shouting because someone will hear you.
Mrs. Miller, how long do you think I can keep this a secret? As soon as the editor says Roger Thomas and a naked person shows up, he's gonna know. What am I gonna do?
Well, I'll think of something.
Well, would you hurry up? I'm in a draft here. Breeze coming from somewhere.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Oh, well, I had an appointment with Mr. Evans with my pants on.
Yes?
Well, I couldn't make that one, but I am here anyway.
Fine, I'll tell Mr. Evans that you and your legs are here. Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, go right in. Mr. Evans will see you now.
Oh, thank you.
We've turned the heat up.
Hi, Roger Thomas. Well, no, I mean, I'm Roger Thomas. You're Mr. Evans. Of course, you know that anyway. If you don't know it, nobody else will.
It's funny. I've covered a circus one time for 4.5 years, and the last pair of knees I saw like that were on a giraffe. Roger, I have to tell you that the job has already been filled. But it's been my policy that I like to meet each applicant personally to say hello. Now, thank you for coming in. It's been a real pleasure.
But Mr. Evans, I submitted my material. Don't you want to discuss my writing?
No, that won't be necessary. We could discuss your shorts if you want.
No, I don't want.
Oh, well, then there's nothing else to talk about. I mean, the job's already filled.
I mean, just like that?
You do have terrible legs, Roger.
I can see you know nothing about legs, Mr. Evans, because I happen to have a great pair of legs.
If you want to go through life thinking you've got nice legs, well, then that's up to you. But as far as the job's concerned, it's filled.
I understand now. You took one look at my clothes and you decided in your mind to brush me off.
No, I'm not brushing you off.
You know, there is a logical explanation for all of this.
You just came in on a plane from Acapulco.
No, see, the head of the meat company got arrested, so I started modeling nude. And then someone stole my clothes, and then I ran here, and that's why you won't accept me, because of my clothes.
I swear to you, Roger, it has nothing to do with your clothes.
No, it isn't my clothes. The problem is this phony world where people are judged by appearances rather than what's inside.
Roger.
I mean, I thought maybe, just maybe, a newspaper man like yourself would understand truth and honesty and a man's inalienable right to be whatever he wanted to be.
Roger.
I mean, freedom of the press. That's a travesty, a sham.
Roger, the problem is your writing.
My writing?
It lacks focus. Now, you've got potential, but you're just not quite ready for us right now.
No, I don't accept that, Mr. Evans. It's my appearance that you won't accept.
No, you're wrong, Roger. Now, if you had the talent, I'd hire you if you walked in here nude.
You want to give it a shot? Hey!
What's eating you?
Oh, Shirley, I'm so depressed. I lost 3 jobs in one day. I mean, you know all about life. What should I do?
Well, my personal advice is not to eat the macaroni salad.
Oh, come on. Hold it, you two. Now, I know you did it, so...
Raj, we're sorry about the dumb prank. We know it was stupid and we have no excuse.
That's good enough for me.
Huh?
Well, we wouldn't have done it, Raj, if we'd known about the interview.
Hey, look, it's cool. I know. It's all right. It's over.
Don't worry, bro. Sooner or later, something will turn up.
Yeah.
Hi, Dee.
Hi.
Hey, Dee.
Hi. Raj, what's the best news I could bring right now?
That somebody's paying $35 an hour for a nude meat salesman.
Close. I was at your place when the newspaper called and said there was a job open.
You're kidding.
Mr. Evans called and said there was a job open for a cub reporter to work part-time, and he wants you to start Monday.
But how? After that interview, I was so rude to him.
No, I cannot believe that. No.
Yeah, Shirley, I acted like a fool.
Now, that I can't believe.
He said he liked the way you spoke up for your rights.
That's great, Raj. You got a job as a reporter.
A cub reporter.
What's a cub?
A little bear.
That's the second time today you've been a little bear.
But it's called payback.
This came to the house for you.
What is it?
How should I know? Opening a person's mail is a federal offense. There's this letter, too.
Oh, it's from Mrs. Miller, the art teacher.
Yeah. She said she thought you were wonderful and made a terrific model. And she said she thought you would like to have this picture.
Oh, man, look at this. Isn't that thoughtful?
It is. Let me see what it is.
What is it?
I think it's Mrs. Miller's impression of me.
Very flattering.
Well, it's not supposed to look like me. It's supposed to capture my inner soul.
Looks more like the outer mess.
What?
What? I didn't know you had a mole there.
In the soft neon afterglow of Chicago evenings that cling to the brick and glass like a memory unwilling to leave, Raj Henderson stood in the cramped apartment that had been his anchor since he'd arrived with more hope than money and more dreams than sense, the walls humming faintly with the echoes of laughter, arguments, and the small rituals that had defined his adulthood. And as he folded his last shirt with a care that surprised him, he realized that moving out was not merely a change of address but a renegotiation of who he was in a city that had taught him to be loud, funny, resilient, and occasionally afraid all at once, because what's happening now had always been less about what happened and more about how the characters learned to carry the weight of what happened next. And Raj, older now, sharper around the edges, felt the accumulated years press into his palms as he taped the box shut. The rip of the tape, a punctuation mark that ended a chapter he had once assumed would never close. He paused, listening to the refrigerator click and the distant siren outside, remembering the first night he'd slept on the floor here, eating cold takeout with Dwayne and Rerun, their jokes bouncing off bare walls, the sense that the future was a party that had already started and they were late but welcome, and he smiled despite the tightness in his chest because nostalgia, he'd learned, was a warm coat you could wear even when it didn't fit anymore. And as he carried boxes to the door, he thought of how the sitcom rhythms of his life had always masked deeper currents. The expectations from family back home who wanted stability, the pressure of being the responsible one among friends who thrived on chaos, the subtle shifts that come with age when punchlines land differently and silences linger longer. And he remembered the conversation that had finally pushed him to this decision, a late-night talk with Dwayne over lukewarm coffee where they admitted, in halting honesty, that the apartment had become a museum of who they used to be, not a workshop for who they were becoming, and that confession had been both a relief and a wound, because moving out meant admitting that growth sometimes required distance, not abandonment but space. And Raj's internal monologue ricocheted between excitement and guilt as he locked the door behind him for what might be the last time, the key heavy in his hand like a token from a game he wasn't sure he wanted to finish. And downstairs the city greeted him with the ordinary miracles of life continuing regardless of personal milestones. A busker playing a familiar tune, a couple arguing softly, a child laughing at nothing in particular, all of it reminding him that while sitcoms end episodes neatly, real life spills over, unresolved, and that his move was not an ending but a reframing, an attempt to claim adulthood on his own terms without losing the humor that had kept him afloat. And as the moving truck rumbled up, and the driver nodded, Raj took a final look at the building, whispered a private thank you to the bricks and windows that had held his younger self together, and felt a strange calm settle in. The kind that arrives not when you know what will happen next, but when you accept that you are ready to find out. Raj's new place announced itself not with charm but with intention. A narrow walk-up on the south side where the stairs complained louder than the tenants and the hallway smelled faintly of detergent and old promises. And as he carried the first box inside, sweat already forming at his temples, he felt the unsettling clarity that came with solitude, the kind that stripped away the laugh track and left only the raw audio of one's thoughts, because here there was no Dwayne arguing about whose turn it was to buy groceries and no Rerun bursting in with a story that began halfway through and ended nowhere. Only Raj and the echo of his own footsteps, and he set the box down, sat on it like a temporary throne, and let the silence test him, realizing that independence was less about freedom and more about accountability, about having no one to blame when the coffee tasted bad or the night stretched too long, and he laughed softly at himself, remembering how he'd once equated adulthood with having better furniture, only to discover that maturity was really about making peace with empty spaces. And as the afternoon light slanted through the single window, he began unpacking with deliberate slowness, each object a small biography: the chipped mug from a road trip gone wrong, the framed photo of the three of them at a street fair pretending not to notice the camera, the stack of vinyl records he rarely played but liked to own because they implied a version of himself who listened deeply, and with every item placed he felt both lighter and more exposed, as if he were building a confession out of cardboard and tape. And he thought about the phone call he hadn't yet returned from his mother. The one he knew would include congratulations wrapped in concern, questions about rent and safety and whether he was eating properly, and he rehearsed answers he might never give, because explaining a life to someone who imagined it differently was an art he'd never mastered. And somewhere between hanging a crooked shelf and burning his first meal in the tiny kitchen, Raj understood that moving out wasn't a rebellion against his friends but a negotiation with his future. A way of telling himself that the man he was becoming deserved a room of his own, even if it was small and imperfect. And later that evening, when the knock came, sharp and unexpected, he opened the door to find Dwayne leaning against the frame with a grin that didn't quite hide the uncertainty in his eyes, holding a six-pack like a peace offering, and the relief Raj felt was immediate and complicated, because he wanted connection without regression, closeness without collapse. And they sat on the floor, backs against opposite walls, drinking and talking about nothing and everything. The conversation drifting from jokes to confessions, from shared memories to divergent plans, and when Dwayne admitted that the apartment already felt different without Raj's presence, Raj nodded, understanding that absence was a language they were both learning to speak, and he said carefully that different didn't have to mean worse, that change could be a plot twist rather than a cancellation, and Dwayne laughed at that, accusing Raj of thinking in television metaphors. But the truth was that Raj had always framed his life like a series, hoping that structure would protect him from chaos, and as the night deepened and the city outside hummed its indifferent lullaby, Raj realized that this move was teaching him a new rhythm, one without canned laughter or predictable arcs, where growth happened in pauses and decisions echoed longer. And when Dwayne finally left, promising to come by again soon, Raj stood alone in the doorway for a moment, watching his friend disappear down the stairs, feeling the bittersweet pride of choosing himself without choosing isolation. And he closed the door gently, sat on the floor once more, and allowed himself to imagine what this space might become, not a monument to solitude but a laboratory for reinvention, a place where he could fail quietly and succeed without witnesses. And as he lay back staring at the ceiling, the first night settling around him like a tentative handshake, Raj accepted that adulthood was not a destination but a series of moves, some forward, some sideways, all requiring courage. And he drifted into sleep not with certainty but with curiosity, which felt, for the first time in a long while, like enough. Morning arrived in Raj's new apartment without ceremony. No familiar voices arguing over the bathroom schedule. No radio left on by accident. Just the pale insistence of daylight creeping through the blinds and settling on his face like a question he hadn't prepared to answer. And he lay still longer than usual, listening to the building wake up around him, pipes groaning, a neighbor coughing. Footsteps above that suggested a life already in motion, and it struck him that solitude had a sound. After all, a low continuous hum made up of other people living nearby but not with him, and that realization both comforted and unsettled him as he finally got up, brewed coffee that tasted faintly metallic, and stood at the window watching the street below where commuters moved with purpose, each one starring in a story he would never fully know. And for the first time since the move he felt the full weight of choice settle on his shoulders, because independence was no longer theoretical but immediate, demanding decisions about how to spend time, energy, even silence. And as he dressed for work he caught his reflection in the mirror, noting the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, or maybe had been there but unacknowledged, and he wondered when exactly youth had shifted from something he inhabited to something he remembered. And that thought followed him out the door, down the stairs, and onto the bus where he took a seat alone, resisting the urge to call Dwayne or rerun just to fill the space, telling himself that learning to be alone without being lonely was a skill worth practicing, even if it felt awkward at first, and at work the day unfolded with familiar rhythms, colleagues joking, deadlines looming, the comforting predictability of tasks he knew how to complete. Yet even there Raj sensed a subtle difference, as if the move had recalibrated his attention, making him more observant, less reactive, noticing how people filled conversations to avoid pauses, how laughter sometimes arrived a second too late, and during lunch he found himself sitting outside instead of in the break room, eating slowly, watching pigeons argue over crumbs, thinking about the unexpected relief of not having to perform constantly, of not being the punchline or the mediator or the reliable one for a few precious minutes, and when his phone buzzed with a message from Rerun, a voice note filled with exaggerated concern and jokes about Raj turning into a hermit, he smiled but didn't reply right away, recognizing that immediacy had often been his default and that delay could be its own form of honesty. And after work he walked home instead of taking the bus, letting the city stretch out around him, the changing storefronts marking transitions between neighborhoods like chapters in a book, and he remembered how the show What's Happening Now had always balanced humor with the unspoken anxieties of adulthood. Characters cracking jokes while navigating layoffs, relationships, and the creeping sense that time was moving faster than they were. And he felt an odd kinship with that tonal juggling act now more than ever, because his own life felt similarly poised between lightness and gravity. And when he reached his apartment he found a note taped to the door from Mrs. Alvarez downstairs welcoming him and reminding him gently about quiet hours, and the simple kindness of it surprised him, making the building feel less anonymous, more like a community he might slowly earn a place in, and he spent the evening assembling a small desk he'd bought secondhand, cursing the missing screw, improvising with determination, and as he worked he thought about his father's advice years ago that a man should know how to fix at least one thing well, and Raj laughed at the memory, realizing that competence was often less about expertise and more about persistence, and later, sitting at the finished desk with a notebook open, he attempted to write something he'd always claimed to want to do but rarely made time for, and the blank page intimidated him more than any move ever had, because it offered no feedback, no laugh track, no clear metric of success, just possibility. And he wrote a few lines about the apartment, about silence, about buses and pigeons, then crossed them out, frustrated but oddly energized. And when night fell he cooked a simple meal and ate it at the desk, savoring the quiet satisfaction of self-sufficiency. Yet as the hours deepened a familiar restlessness crept in, the urge to share the day with someone, to narrate it into meaning, and he picked up the phone, hesitated, then called his mother, the conversation unfolding as expected yet different somehow, her voice warm with pride, her questions probing but loving, and when she asked if he was happy, Raj paused longer than usual before answering honestly that he was figuring it out, and she laughed softly, telling him that figuring it out was the most adult answer he could give, and after they hung up he sat back, feeling steadied, aware that growth didn't require severing ties but reconfiguring them, and as he prepared for bed, brushing his teeth in the quiet bathroom, he acknowledged a subtle shift within himself, a growing comfort with uncertainty, a willingness to let days be uneven, and lying in bed he thought about Dwayne and Rerun, about the inevitable changes their friendships would undergo, about how distance might clarify rather than erode connection, and he realized that moving out had not diminished his past but reframed it, turning shared history into a foundation rather than a ceiling, and sleep came more easily this time, carrying with it not the anxiety of the unknown but the steady curiosity of a man learning to listen to his own life as it unfolded, unaccompanied yet not alone. The first weekend in the new apartment arrived like an unscheduled guest, polite enough not to knock but insistent in its presence, and Raj woke on Saturday without the familiar urgency of alarms or obligations, the luxury of unstructured time stretching ahead of him in a way that felt both generous and vaguely threatening, because free time had a way of revealing truths he usually kept hidden beneath routines, and he lay in bed listening to the city settle into a slower rhythm, the distant sound of a radio drifting through an open window somewhere, the clatter of dishes from a neighboring unit, and he realized that weekends used to mean negotiated plans, compromises shaped by friendship and habit, whereas now they belonged to him entirely, an open field that demanded intention, and he rose with a mixture of resolve and uncertainty, deciding that the day deserved a purpose even if it wasn't yet clear what that purpose should be. So he showered, dressed casually, and made a list on the back of an envelope, not a productivity list but a grounding one, groceries, laundry, a walk, maybe calling Rerun, and as he looked at the modest ambitions written there, he smiled at how adulthood often announced itself not in grand declarations but in small, self-directed acts, and outside the air carried the mild optimism of late morning. The city softer around the edges, and Raj walked to the corner store, noticing details he'd overlooked before. A mural half-faded but still proud. A man selling flowers from buckets, the subtle choreography of strangers sharing space without speaking, and inside the store he lingered longer than necessary, comparing prices, choosing vegetables he actually intended to cook, feeling a quiet satisfaction in making decisions without commentary. And back at the apartment he unpacked groceries with care, arranging them as if order itself were a form of reassurance, and while the washing machine churned in the basement laundry room, he met Mrs. Alvarez. Properly, their conversation halting at first then warming as they traded small histories, her stories of raising children in the building, his explanation of being new to living alone, and she told him gently that solitude was easier when you knew the names of the people around you. Advice that felt both practical and philosophical, and as he returned upstairs he thought about community not as an obligation but as a series of small recognitions. Nods exchanged, favors remembered, and the afternoon stretched on with a pleasant lack of urgency. Raj cooking a simple meal that turned out better than expected, eating slowly, then sitting by the window watching clouds rearrange themselves, and it was in that quiet observation that a wave of memory arrived uninvited. A flashback to Saturdays in the old apartment where afternoons dissolved into impromptu gatherings, friends dropping by unannounced, laughter competing with the television. And for a moment the absence felt sharp, like the echo after a door slams, and he allowed himself to feel it fully rather than deflecting with humor, understanding that grief for a past version of life didn't negate appreciation for the present one. And later when his phone buzzed with a group message from Dwayne and Rerun arguing playfully about ordering food, Raj typed a response, paused, then sent a simple suggestion to meet later in the evening instead, surprised by his own ability to set boundaries without defensiveness. And the hours before that meeting he filled with a long walk along the lake, the water expansive and indifferent, reminding him that individual transitions were tiny against the backdrop of something enduring. And as he walked he reflected on the way the show What's Happening Now had portrayed adulthood as a negotiation between continuity and change. Characters carrying forward their youthful bonds while adapting to new responsibilities, and he recognized that his own move was a similar negotiation, not an abandonment of friendship but a recalibration of proximity. And when evening arrived and he met Dwayne and Rerun at a familiar spot, the reunion carried a subtle awkwardness at first, jokes landing slightly off, conversations circling cautiously, until Rerun broke the tension with a story so absurd it restored the old rhythm instantly, and Raj laughed freely, relieved that connection could survive altered logistics. And yet as the night progressed he noticed his own shifting role, less the mediator, more the observer, contributing without anchoring the entire dynamic, and that shift felt healthy. Even if it unsettled him, because identity built solely on usefulness was a fragile thing. And when they parted ways Raj declined the invitation to head back to the old apartment, choosing instead to walk home alone. A decision that felt both empowering and tender, and back in his quiet space he reflected on the day, the balance he'd struck between engagement and solitude, and he realized that independence wasn't about isolation but about choosing connection deliberately rather than by default. And Sunday unfolded with a similar gentleness. Raj tackling small tasks, reading, attempting to write again at his desk, this time allowing the words to be imperfect, understanding that progress often hid inside flawed attempts, and he wrote about moving, about silence, about laughter remembered, and while the writing didn't yet feel good it felt honest, which mattered more. And in the afternoon his mother called again, checking in, and Raj spoke more freely than usual about his weekend, about laundry rooms and lake walks, and she listened without interrupting, a small but meaningful shift in their dynamic. And as the weekend drew to a close Raj prepared for the week ahead with a sense of steadiness he hadn't expected, acknowledging that while loneliness would likely visit again, it no longer frightened him as it once had, because he was learning to host it briefly without letting it stay. And lying in bed that night, he thought about how growth rarely announced itself loudly, how it often arrived disguised as ordinary days handled with slightly more awareness than before, and he felt a quiet pride in navigating this new chapter without spectacle, trusting that meaning would accumulate gradually. And as sleep took him he understood that moving out had not solved his life but had given him a clearer vantage point from which to live it, and that clarity, however provisional, was worth the risk. Monday returned with its familiar insistence, but Raj noticed immediately that it no longer felt like a reset button that erased whatever personal progress he'd made over the weekend. Instead, it felt like a continuation, a line extending forward rather than snapping back into place. And as he moved through his morning routine, he sensed a growing coherence between who he was at home and who he presented to the outside world, a subtle alignment that reduced the friction he'd grown accustomed to. Over the years, and on the walk to the bus stop, he passed the same faces as before, yet felt newly visible to himself, as if moving out had adjusted the lens through which he experienced ordinary moments. And at work this manifested in small but telling ways. Raj speaking up in meetings with less performative humor, choosing clarity over charm, and noticing that colleagues responded not with confusion but respect, which surprised him, because he'd long believed likability depended on constant levity. And during a lull in the afternoon he caught himself thinking about ambition, not the loud cinematic version he'd once imagined, but a quieter, more sustainable form that asked what kind of life he wanted to build rather than what kind of approval he wanted to earn. And that question lingered with him through the day, following him home where the apartment greeted him with its now familiar calm, and he set down his bag, changed clothes, and stood for a moment unsure how to proceed, recognizing that the absence of urgency could be as disorienting as its presence. And he decided to cook something slightly more ambitious than usual, pulling out a recipe he'd bookmarked months ago but never attempted. And as he chopped and stirred, he found a surprising pleasure in the process, the focus it demanded crowding out unnecessary rumination. And the meal turned out imperfect but satisfying, and he ate slowly, appreciating the fact that no one was watching, no commentary required. And afterward he sat at his desk and returned to his writing, determined this time not to judge the output too harshly. And he wrote about transitions, about how sitcoms trained audiences to expect resolution within 30 minutes while real life stretched conflicts across years. And he wrote about friendship as a living thing that changed shape without losing substance. And the words came unevenly but persistently, filling several pages before fatigue set in. And he leaned back, feeling a modest pride that didn't need an audience. And later that evening his phone rang, Dwayne's name lighting up the screen, and Raj hesitated only briefly before answering. Their conversation casual at first, then drifting into more vulnerable territory, Dwayne admitting that the apartment felt quieter, that he hadn't realized how much he relied on Raj's presence to stabilize things, and Raj listened without rushing to reassure, understanding that allowing discomfort to exist was sometimes kinder than fixing it prematurely. And he shared his own uncertainties, the moments of doubt and unexpected contentment, and the honesty between them felt like a recalibration rather than a rupture. And when the call ended, Raj felt closer to his friend than he had in weeks, proof that distance could refine rather than dilute connection. And the next few days unfolded with a steady rhythm: work, walks, dinners, writing, sleep, each activity reinforcing the sense that life didn't require constant novelty to feel meaningful. And midweek brought an unexpected challenge when Raj's car refused to start, stranding him in the apartment parking lot with a growing sense of irritation. And as he waited for roadside assistance, he felt old habits rise, the urge to complain, to dramatize the inconvenience. But instead he breathed through it, reminding himself that frustration was a transient state, not an identity. And when help arrived and the problem turned out to be minor, Raj laughed at his earlier tension, recognizing how much of stress was generated by narrative rather than circumstance, and that insight carried into his interactions with others, him responding more thoughtfully, less reactively. And on Thursday evening he attended a small gathering at a coworker's place, something he might previously have skipped or dominated with jokes. And this time he allowed himself to be quieter, to listen, to observe how people revealed themselves in fragments, and he left feeling pleasantly connected rather than drained, a new sensation that suggested his social instincts were evolving. Alongside his living situation, and Friday arrived with the promise of rest, and Raj chose to spend the evening alone. A deliberate decision rather than a default, ordering takeout, watching a documentary, and reflecting on how solitude now felt like a choice rather than a consequence. And he thought about the show What's Happening Now and how its characters navigated adulthood with humor masking deeper uncertainties, and he appreciated how his own life echoed that dynamic while also diverging from it, because unlike scripted characters he wasn't required to remain static for the sake of familiarity. And that freedom felt both exhilarating and daunting. And Saturday morning he received a call from Rerun, exuberant as ever, insisting they meet up, and Raj agreed, meeting him at a park where Rerun's energy contrasted sharply with Raj's measured calm. and their conversation bounced from jokes to reflections, Rerun admitting he feared being left behind as others moved forward. And Raj responded with empathy rather than dismissal, assuring him that growth didn't have to be a competition, and that reassurance seemed to settle something unspoken between them. And the afternoon passed easily, laughter punctuated by thoughtful silences, and when they parted, Raj felt grateful for friendships that adapted rather than fractured. And back at the apartment, he spent the evening reorganizing his space, moving furniture slightly, creating a small reading nook, and the physical act of rearranging mirrored the internal adjustments he'd been making. And as night fell, he sat with a notebook, reviewing the week, acknowledging moments of doubt, satisfaction, connection, and solitude. And he realized that moving out had initiated a process rather than completed it. A slow unfolding that required patience and self-trust. And lying in bed, he felt a groundedness that hadn't been present before, a sense that while uncertainty remained, it no longer felt like a threat. And he drifted into sleep with the quiet confidence of someone learning to inhabit his own life more fully, aware that this chapter was still being written, one ordinary day at a time. The following week unfolded with a subtle shift in tone that Raj couldn't immediately name, a sense that something beneath the surface was reorganizing itself, not dramatically, not with the sharp clarity of a revelation, but with the patient insistence of a tide changing direction. And he became aware of it on Tuesday morning when he caught himself humming while making coffee, the sound surprising him because it emerged without intention, a spontaneous expression of ease that felt unfamiliar, yet welcome. And as he moved through his day, he noticed other small signals, his shoulders less tense on the bus, his reactions at work more measured, his laughter quieter but more genuine. And he wondered if this was what people meant when they talked about settling into oneself, a phrase he'd always found vague and vaguely suspicious. Yet now it seemed to describe something tangible, a reduction in internal noise that allowed experience to register more clearly. And that clarity brought with it not only comfort but a sharper awareness of unresolved questions, particularly around purpose, a word he'd avoided because of its tendency to inflate ordinary decisions into existential tests. Yet living alone had stripped away distractions enough that the question kept resurfacing, not as an accusation but as an invitation, asking not what he should do next but why he was doing what he was already doing. And one evening after dinner, he found himself staring at the blank wall above his desk, imagining what might belong there: art, photographs, shelves, symbols of identity. And he realized that for the first time he wasn't sure how he wanted to present himself even to his own reflection, because without the shared aesthetic of the old apartment, without the collective clutter that diluted personal preference, his space demanded intentional self-definition, and that demand felt both empowering and unnerving. And he left the wall empty for the moment, deciding that not all questions required immediate answers. And later that night he met Dwayne for a drink, their conversation flowing easily at first, then tightening around topics neither had fully articulated before, Dwayne admitting he felt stuck, caught between who he'd been and who he thought he was supposed to become. And Raj listened, recognizing echoes of his own unease, and instead of offering advice he shared his experience of the move, how it hadn't solved anything but had clarified which questions belonged to him alone. And Dwayne nodded, absorbing that, and the honesty between them felt like a recalibration of their friendship, less dependent on shared circumstance and more grounded in mutual recognition. And as they parted, Raj felt a renewed appreciation for relationships that evolved without losing warmth. And the next day at work he was offered a small leadership role on a project, nothing flashy but significant in its implication, and his initial instinct was to deflect, to joke it away. But he paused, remembering his recent commitment to clarity over charm, and he accepted with measured confidence, surprising both himself and his supervisor. And the responsibility energized him, not because it promised validation but because it aligned with a growing desire to invest more deeply in fewer things. And evenings that week were spent planning, writing, and occasionally pacing the apartment as ideas collided and reorganized. And he noticed how solitude amplified both anxiety and creativity, forcing him to confront doubts without the buffer of distraction, yet also allowing insights to surface uninterrupted. And one night, while revising a paragraph he'd written earlier, he experienced a fleeting moment of flow, words aligning effortlessly, meaning emerging without strain, and the satisfaction of it lingered long after he stopped writing, a quiet affirmation that some pursuits rewarded patience rather than performance. And as the days accumulated, Raj found himself reaching out, selectively, calling his mother not out of obligation but curiosity, meeting Rerun for lunch. Rather than defaulting to group hangouts, and these choices felt deliberate, reflective of a growing trust in his own preferences, and Rerun, sensing the change, teased him about becoming introspective. But beneath the humor, Raj detected a respect that hadn't always been there, and their conversation drifted into unexpected depth. Rerun admitting fears he usually masked with bravado, and Raj responded not as a fixer but as a witness, understanding that presence itself could be a form of support. And back at the apartment, Raj received an email from his landlord about a minor inspection, the mundane logistics of independence reminding him that autonomy came with practical responsibilities as well as emotional ones, and he handled it calmly, appreciating how far he'd come from the version of himself who once relied on others to manage details he found tedious. And the weekend arrived quietly, and Raj chose to spend it largely alone, not out of withdrawal but curiosity, wanting to see what emerged in extended solitude, and he filled the hours with long walks, reading, cooking, and writing, noticing how time expanded when unfragmented, how thoughts deepened when allowed to linger, and there were moments of loneliness, sharp but brief, which he acknowledged without judgment, understanding that emotional fluctuations were not failures but signals. And one afternoon he visited a bookstore, wandering aimlessly until a title caught his eye, a collection of essays about transition and identity, and he bought it without overthinking, later reading passages that resonated uncomfortably well, articulating feelings he hadn't yet found language for, and the recognition felt both exposing and validating. And as Sunday evening approached, Raj prepared for the week ahead with a sense of grounded anticipation, aware that while uncertainty remained, it no longer felt paralyzing, because he was learning to navigate it with curiosity rather than fear. And lying in bed that night, he reflected on how moving out had shifted not only his environment but his internal posture toward life, from reactive to reflective, from performative to purposeful, and he understood that this process was ongoing, that clarity arrived in increments rather than epiphanies, and that patience was not passivity but an active form of trust. And as sleep settled over him, he felt a quiet resolve to continue this exploration, to allow himself the space to become without rushing toward conclusions. And that resolve, though understated, felt like the most significant development yet. Change rarely announced itself with clarity. Raj was learning. Instead, it crept in disguised as repetition. Days that looked similar on the surface yet carried subtle internal differences. And he became aware of this one Wednesday afternoon when he realized he no longer measured his evenings by whether or not he saw Dwayne or Rerun, but by how fully he inhabited whatever he chose to do, and that realization felt both liberating and faintly disloyal, as if independence required a quiet renegotiation of loyalty, not abandoning old bonds but loosening the grip of habit. And that tension followed him through the week as he balanced new responsibilities at work with a growing desire to protect his personal time. And on Thursday, when a colleague asked him to stay late for something that could clearly wait, Raj surprised himself by declining politely but firmly, the words leaving his mouth without apology. And afterward he sat with the unfamiliar sensation of asserting a boundary, and surviving it, no catastrophe ensuing, no rejection following, just a calm acceptance that felt quietly revolutionary. And that evening he returned home earlier than usual, the apartment bathed in late sunlight, dust motes floating like suspended thoughts, and he sat on the floor leaning against the wall he'd left bare, considering again what belonged there, and instead of imagining what might impress others, he asked himself what would steady him, and the answer arrived not as an image but as a feeling, continuity, reminders of where he'd been without trapping him there. And he made a mental note to look through old boxes stored away, not out of nostalgia but integration, and the next day he did just that, opening cartons filled with photographs, letters, forgotten objects, each item triggering a memory that arrived fully formed, smells, sounds, emotions resurrected with surprising intensity, and he found himself laughing at his younger self's earnestness, wincing at old insecurities, and feeling a softened compassion for the man he had been when he didn't yet know how things would unfold. And among the clutter he found a photo of the three of them from years ago, arms slung over shoulders, faces alight with an optimism that now felt both naive and admirable. And instead of sadness he felt gratitude, understanding that that version of himself had done the best he could with what he knew then, and that his current steadiness was built on those earlier uncertainties. And he placed the photo on his desk temporarily, not yet ready to commit it to the wall but unwilling to tuck it away again. And later that evening Rerun called unexpectedly. his voice subdued beneath its usual bravado, and after some casual banter he admitted he'd been thinking about the past too, about whether they'd missed opportunities or misunderstood their own potential, and Raj listened, recognizing the familiar undertone of fear beneath the humor, and he responded. Honestly, that regret was inevitable but not definitive. That life wasn't a single decision tree but a series of overlapping paths, and Rerun fell quiet for a moment before laughing softly, admitting that Raj sounded different lately, calmer, and Raj accepted that observation without deflection, understanding that growth often altered how others perceived you, and that alteration could feel threatening even when it wasn't intended. And when the call ended, Raj felt a renewed responsibility to remain present in his friendships without retreating into solitude as a shield. And the weekend arrived with unexpected plans when Dwayne invited him to a family gathering, something Raj might previously have attended out of obligation or declined out of discomfort. But this time he accepted with curiosity, seeing it as an opportunity to experience connection outside familiar roles, and the gathering was loud, chaotic, affectionate, filled with overlapping conversations and shared history, and Raj found himself observing how families carried narratives forward, stories retold, identities reinforced, and he noticed how Dwayne shifted subtly in that context, more guarded, more deferential, and Raj gained a deeper appreciation for the invisible pressures his friend navigated. And during a quiet moment, Dwayne admitted he envied Raj's move, not the apartment itself but the courage it represented, and Raj responded carefully, emphasizing that courage often looked clearer in hindsight than in the moment, and that uncertainty was still very much part of the equation, and that honesty seemed to ease something between them, allowing their friendship to rest on shared vulnerability rather than shared circumstance. And back home that night, Raj felt emotionally full but not overwhelmed, a balance he'd rarely achieved before, and he spent Sunday morning writing, the words coming more readily now, less self-conscious, more exploratory, and he wrote about friendship evolving under pressure, about solitude as a tool rather than a punishment, about adulthood as a series of quiet recalibrations rather than dramatic transformations, and the act of articulating these thoughts reinforced their validity, making them feel less like fleeting insights and more like guiding principles. And in the afternoon he finally committed to the wall above his desk, hanging the photograph in a simple frame, not as a shrine to the past but as an acknowledgement of continuity, a reminder that growth did not require erasure. And as evening fell, he prepared for the coming week with a sense of grounded anticipation, aware that challenges would continue to arise, doubts would resurface, but confident now in his capacity to meet them without retreating into old patterns. And lying in bed, he reflected on how moving out had gradually transformed from a logistical change into an internal realignment, altering how he related to time, to people, to himself, and he recognized that while the process was ongoing, the direction felt true, and that truth, however provisional, provided a steady compass, and as sleep approached he felt gratitude not for certainty but for momentum, the quiet forward motion of a life being lived with increasing intention. The rhythm of Raj's days began to feel less like something he was chasing and more like something he was shaping. A subtle but profound shift that became apparent during a quiet Thursday evening when he realized he had stopped counting how long it had been since he moved out, as if the act itself had finally dissolved into the fabric of his life rather than standing apart as a milestone. And that realization brought with it a gentle confidence, the kind that didn't announce itself loudly but settled in the background like a steady pulse, and he noticed how this internal steadiness influenced even the smallest interactions. The way he greeted Mrs. Alvarez on the stairs with genuine warmth rather than polite obligation. The way he listened more attentively at work, no longer planning his response while others spoke, and the way he allowed silence to exist without rushing to fill it. And one evening after dinner, he decided to take a different route on his usual walk, wandering through a residential stretch he hadn't explored before, the houses modest but well kept, porch lights glowing softly, glimpses of domestic life unfolding behind curtains, and he felt a curious sense of belonging, not to any one household but to the idea that life could be lived quietly and fully without spectacle. And that feeling stayed with him as he returned home and sat at his desk, opening his notebook without expectation, letting the words emerge slowly, deliberately, and he wrote about the fear of becoming invisible once the performance ended. A fear he now recognized as unfounded, because visibility, he was learning, was not synonymous with volume. And later that night his phone buzzed with a message from Dwayne, short and uncharacteristically serious, asking if Raj had a moment to talk, and Raj called immediately, Hearing the strain in his friend's voice as Dwayne admitted he was considering making changes of his own. Maybe moving, maybe shifting jobs, but felt paralyzed by the weight of starting over, and Raj listened with a patience he hadn't always possessed, resisting the urge to minimize or joke, and instead he shared honestly that starting over rarely felt like a clean break, that it often looked like carrying uncertainty forward until it gradually reshaped itself into clarity. And Dwayne was quiet for a long moment before exhaling, saying that Raj sounded like someone who trusted himself now, and Raj absorbed that observation carefully, understanding that trust was not something granted all at once but earned through repeated acts of self-respect. And when the call ended, he felt both humbled and strengthened by the exchange, aware that his choices were influencing others not through persuasion but example. And the following day brought an unexpected invitation from work to attend a professional workshop, something Raj might previously have declined out of self-doubt or dismissed as unnecessary, but this time he accepted without overthinking, curious rather than defensive, and the workshop introduced him to people outside his usual circle, conversations that stretched his perspective, and he found himself engaging more openly, less concerned with how he was perceived and more interested in what he could learn. And that openness carried into the weekend when Rerun suggested a spontaneous road trip, the kind of impulsive plan that once would have defined Raj's sense of fun. And Raj hesitated, weighing his desire for quiet against the value of shared experience, and ultimately he agreed with conditions: a shorter trip, a clear return time, boundaries that surprised Rerun but were accepted without protest. And the trip itself was filled with familiar humor and unexpected moments of reflection. Long stretches of road encouraging conversation that drifted from jokes to memories to unspoken anxieties, and Raj noticed how easily he could now enjoy the chaos without being consumed by it, participating without losing himself. And when they returned that evening, Raj declined an invitation to crash at the old apartment, choosing instead to head home, and the decision felt neither dramatic nor regretful, simply aligned. And back in his quiet space he unpacked the day's experiences, acknowledging the pleasure of connection alongside the relief of solitude. And he recognized that balance as something he'd long sought without knowing how to articulate it. And Sunday unfolded with deliberate simplicity, Raj cooking, reading, and finally rearranging the desk area to better suit his writing habits. Small adjustments that reflected an evolving understanding of how he functioned best. And as he worked, he thought about the past months not as a linear progression but as a series of overlapping lessons, each reinforcing the idea that adulthood was less about arriving somewhere definitive and more about developing the flexibility to adapt without losing integrity. And in the late afternoon he received a call from his mother, their conversation easy, unforced, and she remarked casually that he sounded settled, and Raj smiled at the word, recognizing that while nothing was fully settled in the traditional sense, he did feel anchored in himself in a way he hadn't before. And after the call he sat quietly, letting the weekend wind down, aware that the coming week would bring new challenges, new decisions, but confident now in his capacity to meet them with intention rather than reflex. And lying in bed that night, he reflected on how moving out had gradually transformed his internal narrative, shifting from a story about separation to one about integration, bringing together independence and connection, ambition and contentment, solitude and companionship. And he understood that this synthesis was ongoing, fragile, and deeply personal, yet it felt true. And as sleep approached he welcomed it without urgency, trusting that whatever came next would be navigable, not because he had all the answers but because he was finally asking the right questions. The season shifted almost imperceptibly, the city cooling by degrees rather than declarations, and Raj noticed it one morning when he reached for a jacket he hadn't worn in months, the fabric carrying a faint memory of another version of himself. And as he stepped outside he felt the particular clarity that autumn brought, a sharpening of edges, a sense that time was both accelerating and becoming more legible, and this awareness followed him through the day, lending weight to conversations and a kind of tenderness to routine. And at work the project he'd taken on reached a critical point, deadlines tightening, expectations clarifying, and Raj found himself stepping into the role with a confidence that surprised him, not because it was loud but because it was steady. He delegated thoughtfully, listened carefully, corrected without defensiveness, and when a minor setback occurred he addressed it directly rather than deflecting with humor. And the team responded in kind, the atmosphere collaborative rather than tense, and afterward his supervisor thanked him in a way that felt genuine, not performative, and Raj walked home with a quiet sense of accomplishment that didn't demand celebration, only acknowledgement. And that evening he cooked a simple meal and ate at the desk, the framed photo nearby catching his eye, and he thought about how leadership, like independence, was less about control and more about presence, about showing up consistently and honestly. And later he met Dwayne for a late walk, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement. Their conversation meandering at first, then settling into deeper territory. Dwayne admitting he'd begun looking at apartments, not yet ready to move but willing to imagine it. And Raj felt a complex mix of pride and caution, understanding that each person's timing was their own, and he encouraged without pushing, sharing that imagining change was often the first real step toward it. And Dwayne laughed, saying Raj had become philosophical, and Raj accepted the label without irony, because he'd learned that reflection didn't have to be heavy to be meaningful, and the walk ended with an easy silence that felt earned. And back home Raj spent an hour writing, not to produce anything polished but to process the day, and the words flowed more freely now, less preoccupied with structure, more attuned to sensation, and he wrote about seasons changing inside people as much as outside them, about how growth often aligned with letting go of urgency, and the act of writing felt less like aspiration and more like practice, a way of staying in conversation with himself. And midweek brought an unexpected complication when Mrs. Alvarez asked for help carrying groceries. A small request that nonetheless anchored Raj more firmly in the building's microcommunity. And as they talked in the hallway, she shared stories of the neighborhood's past, businesses that had come and gone, families who'd stayed and others who'd drifted away, and Raj listened with genuine interest, realizing that belonging often emerged not from dramatic gestures but from accumulated attentiveness. And later that day he received an invitation to a gathering hosted by someone he'd met at the workshop, a mix of professionals and creatives, and he accepted with curiosity rather than anxiety, and the gathering was intimate, conversations overlapping without competing, and Raj found himself sharing thoughtfully, asking questions, feeling neither on display nor invisible, and when he left he felt energized rather than depleted, a sign he was learning to calibrate his social engagement to his actual needs. And Friday night he chose rest, ordering food, watching a film without multitasking, noticing how presence deepened even passive experiences, and Saturday morning arrived with a crispness that invited movement, and Raj took a long walk, reflecting on how his internal compass now felt less reactive, more responsive, and he thought about the show What's Happening Now and how its humor often rested on the friction between expectation and reality. And he recognized that his own life had shifted as he stopped demanding that reality match a preconceived script, allowing it instead to reveal itself gradually. And that afternoon rerun called with news, he'd enrolled in a course, tentative but excited, and Raj congratulated him sincerely, sensing that change was rippling outward from his own decisions, not as causation but as permission. And Sunday brought a quiet culmination to the week. Raj cleaning the apartment, rearranging the bookshelf, donating items he no longer needed, each small act reinforcing a commitment to intentional living. And as evening settled he sat by the window watching the sky darken, feeling neither restless nor complacent, but balanced in a way that felt earned, and he acknowledged that uncertainty remained a constant companion. Yet it no longer dictated his choices, because he'd learned to move alongside it rather than against it, and lying in bed he considered how far he'd come since that first night alone. Not in terms of milestones achieved, but in the quality of attention he brought to his life, and that quality felt like the true measure of growth. And as sleep approached he felt ready for whatever the next chapter might ask of him, trusting that he would meet it with the same measured curiosity that had carried him this far. There came a point, sometime in the middle of October, when Raj realized that the question of moving out no longer framed his thoughts, not as a dilemma, not as a justification, not even as a reference point, because the decision had finally receded into the background where all completed choices belonged, and what remained was the quieter, more demanding work of living with the consequences, both liberating and limiting. And this awareness surfaced one morning as he stood in line at a cafe near his apartment, the barista greeting him by name without ceremony. The familiarity neither thrilling nor disappointing, just real. And he understood then that rootedness was not the same as stagnation, that being known in small, unremarkable ways could be a form of progress. And this understanding followed him through the week as he navigated a series of moments that tested his emerging steadiness, starting with an unexpected conflict at work when two team members clashed over responsibility, the tension threatening to derail the project Raj was leading. And instead of smoothing things over with humor or retreating into neutrality, he addressed the issue directly, listening to both sides, clarifying expectations, and naming the underlying concern without assigning blame, and the resolution was imperfect but functional, and afterward he felt a restrained pride, not in having authority but in having used it responsibly, and that evening he walked home slowly, replaying the exchange not with anxiety but with analysis, recognizing that leadership, like independence, required tolerating discomfort without rushing to escape it. And at home he found a handwritten note slipped under his door from Mrs. Alvarez thanking him again for helping with groceries earlier in the week. The gesture simple yet unexpectedly affecting, and he pinned the note to a corkboard near his desk, realizing that these small acknowledgments were stitching him into a web of everyday significance he hadn't known he was missing. And midweek brought a phone call from his sister, her voice brisk but warm, asking how he was really doing, and Raj answered honestly, describing not events but states of mind, the oscillation between contentment and doubt, the sense of becoming without arriving, and she listened without interruption, then said quietly that he sounded more like himself than he had in years, a comment that lingered with him long after the call ended, prompting reflection on how easily one could lose oneself while trying to meet unspoken expectations, and how reclaiming that self often looked unremarkable from the outside. And one evening after dinner Raj sat at his desk and reread earlier entries from his notebook, noticing the shift in tone over time, the early urgency giving way to patience, the self-consciousness dissolving into curiosity, and he felt a gentle compassion for the version of himself who had written those first pages, understanding that growth did not invalidate earlier confusion but contextualized it. And later that night he met Dwayne and Rerun for drinks, the atmosphere easy but subtly altered, conversations branching outward rather than looping back on familiar grievances. And when the topic turned to the old apartment, to memories shared there, Raj felt no pang of longing, only appreciation, and he noticed that neither of them pressed him to return, as if they too had accepted the shift as natural rather than threatening, and that acceptance felt like a quiet victory, not over anyone but over the fear that change required loss. And the weekend arrived with rain that softened the city, muting colors and slowing movement, and Raj welcomed the enforced stillness, spending Saturday indoors reading, cooking, and writing, allowing the hours to unfold without agenda. And in the afternoon he received an email confirming that his project at work had been well received by upper management. The recognition, understated but meaningful, and he forwarded it to his mother without commentary, later smiling at her enthusiastic reply, and Sunday brought a long conversation with Rerun, who confessed anxieties about falling behind, about being perceived as unserious, and Raj responded not with reassurance but with reflection, sharing his own fears of invisibility, of becoming irrelevant once the performance ended, and the mutual vulnerability strengthened their bond in a way jokes never could. And after the call Raj took a walk in the rain, the streets nearly empty, and he thought about how adulthood was often portrayed as a narrowing of possibilities, yet his experience suggested the opposite, that shedding roles chosen out of habit created space for choices aligned with intention. And that evening, as he prepared for the week ahead, he noticed how his apartment now felt less like a statement and more like an extension. Not something he occupied but something that supported him, and lying in bed he reflected on how moving out had initiated a cascade of recalibrations in friendship, in work, in self-perception. None of them dramatic alone but cumulative in their effect, and he recognized that while he still did not know exactly where he was headed, he trusted the direction he was moving in, because it was guided not by fear or inertia but by attentiveness, and as sleep came he felt a quiet readiness for whatever adjustments lay ahead, understanding that stability was not the absence of change but the capacity to absorb it without losing coherence. As November edged closer, the city seemed to exhale, trees shedding their last stubborn leaves, storefronts rearranging themselves for colder days, and Raj felt a corresponding internal shift, not a dramatic upheaval but a deepening, as if the earlier clarity he'd gained was now settling into something more durable, and this became evident during a quiet Tuesday morning when he realized he was no longer narrating his life to himself as it happened, no longer stepping outside of moments to assess whether they mattered, but simply inhabiting them, allowing significance to emerge on its own terms, and this subtle change altered how he experienced everything from his commute to his conversations, making them feel less like evidence of progress and more like expressions of presence. And at work the project he'd led officially concluded, marked not by fanfare but by a short meeting and sincere thanks, and Raj accepted the acknowledgement without minimizing it or inflating it, understanding that satisfaction didn't require spectacle, and later that day his supervisor asked about his long-term goals. a question that once would have triggered rehearsed answers, but Raj responded thoughtfully, admitting he was still clarifying them, yet confident in his desire to grow with intention rather than urgency, and the honesty of that response seemed to resonate, the conversation ending with mutual respect rather than pressure. And that evening Raj walked home under an early darkness, streetlights flickering on, the chill sharpening his awareness, and he reflected on how comfort with ambiguity had become one of his most valuable skills. Not because it resolved uncertainty, but because it prevented uncertainty from dictating his choices. And at home he cooked, cleaned, and wrote, the ordinary sequence of activities now carrying a quiet satisfaction, and he noticed how his writing had shifted again. Less focused on self-definition and more on observation, capturing moments without attaching them immediately to identity, and the practice felt liberating, as if he were learning to trust experience to speak for itself. And midweek brought an unexpected visit from Dwayne, stopping by unannounced but considerate, carrying takeout and a tentative smile, and as they ate on the floor they talked about small things at first, then gradually moved into more reflective territory, Dwayne admitting he'd toured an apartment that afternoon, unsure whether he'd go through with it but surprised by his own openness to the idea, and Raj listened with a mixture of pride and restraint, careful not to frame the moment as validation of his own choices, but as evidence of his friend's readiness to explore change on his own terms. And when Dwayne asked if Raj ever missed the old setup, Raj answered honestly that he missed moments, not the structure, and that distinction seemed to land, allowing the conversation to rest without defensiveness. And after Dwayne left, Raj felt a renewed appreciation for friendships that could evolve without competition, and the weekend arrived quietly, Raj declining several invitations without guilt, choosing instead to rest and reflect. And on Saturday he tackled a long-postponed task of organizing paperwork, a mundane responsibility that nonetheless symbolized his increasing willingness to face practical realities without avoidance, and the sense of completion it brought surprised him, reinforcing the idea that adulthood often announced itself through competence rather than confidence. And that evening he attended a small reading at a local bookstore, something he'd once imagined doing but never prioritized. And as he listened to others share their work he felt neither envy nor intimidation, only curiosity, noticing how each voice carried its own rhythm, its own permission, and on the walk home he considered the possibility of sharing his own writing someday. Not as a declaration of identity but as an extension of engagement, and that possibility felt open rather than urgent. And Sunday brought a long call with his mother, their conversation ranging from practical updates to reflective pauses, and at one point she remarked that he seemed settled in a way that didn't depend on circumstances, and Raj recognized the truth in that observation, understanding that while nothing in his life was fixed, his relationship to change itself had stabilized. And after the call he sat quietly, letting the week's experiences integrate, aware that growth often required periods of consolidation as much as movement. And as evening fell he prepared for the coming week with a calm attentiveness, not anticipating specific outcomes but trusting his capacity to respond. And lying in bed he reflected on how far he'd come from that first night alone, not by accumulating achievements but by shedding compulsions, learning to choose deliberately, to listen deeply, and to remain present even when answers were incomplete. And he understood that this phase of his life was not a conclusion but a threshold, a space of readiness rather than arrival, and that awareness filled him with a quiet confidence, one that didn't need affirmation to endure. And as sleep approached he felt prepared for the final adjustments still ahead, trusting that whatever form they took, he would meet them with the same steadiness he'd been cultivating all along. The end of the year arrived without ceremony, not with a dramatic reckoning or a moment of unmistakable revelation, but with a series of ordinary days that quietly affirmed how much Raj's internal landscape had changed. And he noticed it first on a cold morning when he woke before his alarm, not restless, not anxious, simply awake, aware of his breath, the muted sounds of the building, the fact of being exactly where he was supposed to be. And as he lay there he realized that this was the first time in years he hadn't felt the need to mentally fast forward, to imagine the next phase as if the present were merely an obstacle to be endured, because now the present felt inhabitable, imperfect but sufficient. And that realization carried a gravity that no milestone ever had. And he rose, made coffee, and stood by the window watching frost trace delicate patterns along the glass, the city subdued yet persistent, and he felt an unfamiliar gratitude for routine, not as confinement but as structure that supported reflection. And at work the days slowed, projects wrapping up, conversations turning reflective, and colleagues spoke casually about plans, resolutions, transitions, and Raj listened without feeling compelled to define his own trajectory in comparison. Understanding now that direction could exist without declaration. And one afternoon his supervisor asked if he'd consider mentoring someone new joining the team, and Raj accepted with a calm certainty that surprised him, recognizing that mentorship was less about authority than availability, and that he was finally present enough to offer that. And the evenings grew longer, darker, and Raj filled them deliberately, writing, reading, cooking meals that took time, occasionally meeting friends but no longer structuring his life around constant engagement. And one night he invited Dwayne and Rerun over to his apartment for the first time, a gesture that felt quietly significant, not as proof of success but as an integration of worlds, and the evening unfolded easily, laughter echoing against walls that now held their own history, conversations moving fluidly between humor and honesty. And Raj noticed how natural it felt to host without performing, to share space without surrendering it. And when they left he stood for a moment in the doorway, feeling neither relief nor loss, just appreciation. And in the days that followed he reflected often on the arc that had brought him here, from the initial fear of solitude to the steadiness that now defined his days. And he understood that moving out had never really been about the apartment, but about permission to pause, to redefine success, to disentangle identity from proximity and habit. And one afternoon he took down the framed photo from his desk, not to put it away but to reposition it alongside new items, a ticket stub from the reading, a note from his sister, the thank you from Mrs. Alvarez, creating a small constellation of memory that reflected continuity rather than nostalgia. And that act felt symbolic, an acknowledgement that the past was not something to escape or enshrine, but something to integrate thoughtfully. And as the year drew to a close, Raj spent an evening alone, no countdown, no resolution list, just a quiet dinner and a long stretch of writing. And he wrote not about change but about attention, about how the quality of awareness shaped experience more than circumstance ever could. And the words felt less like aspiration and more like documentation, a record of a shift already underway. And later he called his mother, their conversation warm and unhurried. And when she asked what he wanted for the coming year, Raj answered simply that he wanted to keep listening, to himself and to others, and she laughed softly, saying that sounded like wisdom, and he smiled, understanding that wisdom was not an identity but a practice. And when the call ended he stood by the window again, watching distant fireworks bloom briefly against the dark sky, indifferent to whether they marked anything official. And he felt no urge to interpret the moment, content to let it be what it was. And as he prepared for bed he reflected one last time on how far he'd come, not from a place to a place, but from noise to clarity, from reflex to intention, from performance to presence. And he understood that this was not an ending in the traditional sense, but a quiet completion of a chapter, the kind that doesn't demand applause, only acknowledgement. And lying in bed he felt a deep, steady calm, aware that uncertainty would return, that challenges would arise, but confident now in his capacity to meet them without losing himself, because he had learned, finally, that independence was not isolation, that growth was not abandonment, and that adulthood was not a fixed state but an ongoing conversation with change. And as sleep took him he carried with him not answers, but trust in his ability to remain present, to choose deliberately, and to continue becoming without fear. And that trust, more than anything else, felt like home.